Om tare tu re soha. Om tare tu re soha. Om tare tu re soha. Om tare tu re soha.
Thank you. Beautiful. Yay. That's a good prompt for me to say, which I've said before, but I want to say it again. All the teachers that I'm aware of anyway, all say you don't really need to be worried if you don't know all the mantras, you don't know how to pronounce all the mantras, or, the mantras really vary even within the same tradition, right? Especially in the transliterations and whatever, to just use the basic mantra of Tara, which you just sang for us. And I think that's a really reassuring little piece of information to have. That mantra is so available, So thank you. That's great. So welcome everybody. I think this is a good moment to, for Karen, why don't you say a little bit about the community agreements and anything else you want to say?
I love that singing. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I'm gonna just post this link to everyone in the chat, which is a document from Bhumi Sparsha that the community made through a group process for agreements and guidelines around communication and respecting each other. And just to say 4 basic points, that we hold confidentiality with each other, and that we take space and we also share the space. And we speak from our self-focus, so from our own experience, and then also holding each other in compassionate presence as we sit together and, talk together. Also, the recording is on right now, but if there's ever a moment you want to share something without the recording on, you can ask for it to be paused. And not to worry, people do it all the time. So feel free to exercise your right. Thank you. And if there's any other access needs or anything that you need to let us know, closed captions or whatever, please chat or say it out loud, bring it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. So I just also want to say, me, I have that thing about there are lots of beginnings. That's a beginning. Another beginning is just to say, if anybody is here who's new, if you want to unmute and just tell us your name and where you're from. And
hi.
Hey, Carol.
Kamla. Oh, sorry. I didn't realize. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, I'm Carol from San Rafael, California, and I've been here sporadically and part of the time, and started attending this time because soon after I got a diagnosis of breast cancer. So today I'm prone. I completed half of my infusions, and my vow to myself was that I would introduce myself. I've been quiet even when I've shown up on Zoom. So hello, and I love being part of this group, even remotely. And
that's great, Carol.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, because that means we can all hold you in our prayers. And
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for letting us know all that, and for introducing yourself.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You're welcome. Okay.
So I'm Kamlu, and I live in Massachusetts. Originally from India, and so I have a back. I grew up raised Hindu, but more spiritual. So I'm not, entirely, what you would call a devoted Hindu, but interested in, other cultures and more spirituality. And I've kind of gone down the path of Buddhism, and then I found your book and been reading it, and here I am.
Well, welcome. And boy, what a great night for you to come, because the praise of this particular Tara talks about the fact that the Hindu gods, Agni, Vayu, and Indra, bow down to her. And that, I was going to mention that tonight, that just shows you that these practices really were, back in the day, a long time ago, collaboration between Buddhist and Hindu Tantra. So welcome. It's good to see you. Anybody else who's new that wants to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Mary, and this is my first time with this. And I'm from Washington State on the West Coast. And I found the book. I was listening to a podcast with Sounds True that was probably about 2 years ago. And so I've been doing that there. And then I thought, well, I wonder about those cards. So I went in and then I saw that this was going on and I thought, okay, I'll try this.
Good. Yay. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to have you. Mm-hmm. So Brian, I think you maybe had a hand up.
Yeah, my name is Brian. I live in an RV, so I kind of live wherever, but my home base is kind of Santa Cruz. Also found the book last year, and Minor Miracle was able to share it with my mom and got her also very interested in Tara. So just kind of interested in deepening my practice, and just so happy that this space exists and I'm finally brave enough to join it.
Well, see, Thomas has already broken ground for you, so you don't have to feel like you're the only guy here. and often there are some others too. I can't see everybody here at once, so there may be some others tonight, but welcome, Brian. That's great. And that's lovely to know that your mom got interested too. That's beautiful. So we're happy that you're here. And anybody else?
Hi. Can you see me?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth, and this is one of my dearest friends, Inger. We're from Austin, Texas, and I picked up your book about a year ago, and I'm on my second reading of it, and was so happy when I realized that there was a group going on. I happened to be visiting Inger today after work, and I told her about it, and so we decided to join together.
That's great. Well, welcome. Yay. That's wonderful. So is there anybody else? Okay, so welcome. Yeah.
Some people just got in.
Oh, Elle, okay.
I'm in Portland, Oregon.
I'm so used to seeing you in other spaces. It's like, she's not new, but you're new to this. So it's good.
My first time here, yeah.
Yeah, well, welcome. Anybody else? Okay, well, let me just say, welcome to all the folks who are new. Welcome to all the folks who have been here many times. It's just a genuine pleasure to see all of you, really. And maybe Monica, you want to give us your speech about the mailing list?
Hi, everybody. I'm Monica, and I manage the contact list for Rachel. So in a minute or two, I'll put my email address in the chat. And if you would like to join the contact list, which enables Rachel to be in touch with the group whenever she has a message, just send me an email and I'll put you on the list. So yeah, I'll do that in a minute or two. Okay, thanks. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you, Monica. And so I want to say that I'm I will be sending out a note probably sometime this weekend about the retreat that is coming up the end of August. It's like August 31st to September 3rd. I think it's from a Thursday to a Sunday. And so a number of you have already gotten this, and 17 of you have signed up. I just want to say thank you again to the people who signed up early, but it's because of you we knew we had enough people to actually reserve this retreat center at Emerald Isle, which is actually quite beautiful. So we actually reserved 20 rooms. So there are 3 spaces left. I have a feeling that there would be other spaces at the center if people decide after this little go round here that they want to join. But anyway, I will be sending out a note over the weekend just with these particulars as reminders for if people, if new people want to sign up. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. One of the things I like to say to people is it's not going to be a boot camp retreat. We will not be getting up at 4 a.m. You know, it'll be very civilized, shall I say, anyway. And we will do a lot of practice, but this place, the center, is like somebody just dropped it right into a maritime forest. And so on one side is the sound and marshes, on the other side is the ocean. It's a beautiful space to just be. So I'm going to try to make sure that people have plenty of time to just be. And you'll be getting that letter. So, okay. I think that's all the announcements. And I think the thing I always want to say, and I'm never going to get tired of saying this, is I just want to thank Karen and Deanna and Mary, our tech hostesses, because it just wouldn't be possible that we would all be doing this if it were not for them. And so I always like to give a shout out to them, and also to Bumi Sparsha, which is our host platform, but it's also the Sangha that we're part of. And Karen and Mary and Brenda Collins, who's not here tonight, they do every week on Wednesday night a gathering called Community Dharma Sharing. And if you are ever interested in that, you just go to the Bumi Sparsha website, click on the calendar, go down. It's Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. It's really quite lovely. And some of the things I'm going to say tonight are a direct result of hearing some of the things that they said last night. So I just want to give a shout out to the 3 of them and to the folks doing this community Dharma sharing. It's just precious. So, all right. So now here's the next beginning. This is the 4th beginning. I'm going to ring this bell once. I love these bells. Anyway, and I just invite you, when you hear the sound, just let the resonance of the sound really sink into your muscles and bones and all that. Even you can see if a deep breath is interested in visiting you, but just to really let this sound possibly even bring you to a place of rest. So we will just rest together with this sound for just a moment. Okay. So in this moment, I really like
Sorry, Rachel, somehow you got muted, so we'll unmute you and maybe you could start again.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just saying that I really like to invite people to open sort of in a sensory way to all the support that's here. Starting with both this literal support of whatever it is you're sitting on and just feeling your body making contact with the seat. And almost the seat is rising up to meet you. You're really being held. And that your feet are on the ground and knowing that the earth is beneath the floor of wherever you are, or the vehicle wherever you are. And then to be aware of the space around you, even in the room you're in. I can look out the windows and see trees and stuff like that. Or you can look around in these wonderful boxes that allow us to see each other and be together. So there's a sense of, we can tune into the physicality of actual literal support. We can also tune into the vastness of being held by space. And we can also tune into what it feels like to be in community with a pretty sizable group of people who are having these intentions to practice together. And in this Tibetan way of practicing, we're practicing for our own benefit, for the benefit of each other, and for the benefit of all beings. So there's a lot of support here. So whatever your day has been like, your week has been like, the last whatever, months or year, whatever, just to see if you can, in a very sensory way, just tune into the fact that you are being supported and that you are supporting other people. It's a very mutual exchange. So bringing that idea back with us, those of you who have practiced with me before know that I will just start saying random things and then whatever comes to me first, but I promise you they all fit together and they're all connected to the particular Tara that we are going to be practicing with tonight. So let me just say something about her first. This is dark red Victorious Tara, and she's the 6th emanation in this mandala of the 21 Taras. And you can see this tanka behind me, and it gives you an idea of what the mandala of the 21 Taras looks like. They're all different. I can't say, oh, this is the one. So don't get attached to that idea. But I really am glad to have this tanka because it can give you the sense of what that mandala could look like when we imagine it. And so she's the 6th emanation. That would mean on my left side, her right side as you're facing it, she's somewhere, kind of up a few, right? Maybe in the middle of the left side. And she is appearing on a lotus throne with a sun disk instead of a moon disk. And that really alerts us to the fact that she is a wrathful form of Tara. And there are several of those in the mandala of 21 Taras, and this is the first one that appears. And I love the wrathful deities. I love, love, love them because my sense of them, and some of this I've learned from the teachings for sure, is that they are great protectors. And there's also the sense that there's nothing you can show to this Tara that's going to make her turn away. it's like you could say she's seen it all. And so her compassion, the vastness of her compassion, extends to everything we might bring, to everything that's going on in the world. And I think that I'm going to talk some more about what I think it could mean, this idea of protection. But at this moment, I think what I just want to say is it's really an invitation, which I think all of Tantra is. It's really an invitation to feel like every part of ourselves is welcome. Every dark thought, every fear. If you think of Rumi's poem, The Guest House, every malice, everything, it's all welcome. And that if we can allow whatever arises from our experience and just let it have some room and have this sense of this compassionate holding presence. We don't have to fight with it. We don't have to analyze it. We don't have to hold on to it. We don't have to let it go. We don't have to do anything except just imagine that this vast energy of wisdom and compassion is holding all that with us and for us. So here she is, she's got this, and it says in the text, it says she's got a slightly wrathful expression, but that sun disk is a real alert to the fact that this is part of this energy. And it says she's holding this dark red vase, which completely enchants the Bhuttas. Well, Bhutta is a sort of a generic, I'm not sure if it's Sanskrit or Tibetan term that refers to beings who like to make trouble. So she's really here to calm those things down. And I'll talk a minute about what I think that might mean to us now in our day and age. But I love the word enchant. And that shows up in a couple of the different of these emanations. But to me, it feels like it's such a compelling energy that whatever sort of negativity is around could actually be so attracted to this other kind of energy that something could shift. So you may have been in meetings at work or some other places where there's a ton of negativity going on, and then one person shows up who's really just holding space, not acting like that. Maybe even I've had one of my friends tell me about being in a very difficult meeting and just internally start to chant Tara mantras for quite a while, and that the energy just changed. So that's how I like to think of this word enchanting, which is in the original text. And then to say something about the praise, I praise the one to whom Indra, Agni, Vayu, and the other powerful ones make offerings, who is honored by demons, zombies, and other harmful spirits who bow down before her. So, as I was just saying to Kamlu, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. These are the very powerful Hindu gods. And, I think that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the sense I have in Hinduism is like Vajrayana Buddhism. These deities represent these particular images and energies that show up and can be of assistance to us. They're awakened energies. And yet they are really manifestations and emanations of this vast, open energy that is hard to put a name on it, right? And so we're not worshiping gods, or we're not worshiping Tara, anything like that. And we're aware that these very powerful energies can take on forms that we can relate to. Would you say that's how you see it?
Yeah, actually coming back to your concept of the Bhuttas, The Bhuta in Sanskrit also means elements. So you have the Panchabhutas, which is fire, Agni, Vayu, which is wind, and Prithvi, earth. And so basically, it's Bhuta is also, you know, the spirits and stuff, but it also is the 5 elements.
Excellent. Thank you.
I think it kind of ties into that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, to me too. And I was thinking about that too, that these are the gods of the elements.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yay. This is one of the things I really appreciate, and I've said this many, many times, is that we get so many teachings from each other. So I always want to encourage people to speak up. So thank you for that. And I think this would be a good moment for me to talk about what a demon, a zombie, or a harmful spirit could mean to us in particular. And at the same time, I just want to say that I think the praise reflects this idea. If you think about our inner life, that it just covers the whole spectrum from the God realm to the lower realms, right? It's just everything is in this vast picture, and it's really saying that all these kind of beings honor Tara. So I have thought about this a lot. I mean, many of you know I'm a Jungian analyst, and one of the things that I have profoundly appreciated about Jung, since I ever was introduced to his ideas, is his idea of the complex. So his idea of the complex really reminds me of this, because he would say they are like autonomous energy fields with an archetypal force at the center. And I sort of always see them like hurricanes, you know, that circling thing that just pulls things into it. And so I really appreciate the fact that he named these energies as being autonomous. And it's like one of his favorite jokes, which I really love, was Freud says, I have a complex, but I say the complex has me. And so if any of you all, and I just can't believe anyone here has not had this experience where you feel kind of possessed by something, you know, it's like you just can't stop thinking about something. You're sort of having a set of sensations, and all of a sudden you're making up a bunch of stories, especially at 3 o'clock in the morning. And you really would prefer not to be doing that, and you just can't, of your own volition, just stop it. I mean, one of the things that I will never forget about when my children were young and were doing things that were very annoying, and I might just really start raising my voice and whatever. And even while I was doing it, another part of me says, what are you doing? Don't do this. Stop it. And I would just keep right on. So I finally actually taught my children about what complexes are like. And I said, so if you ever see me in one of those moods, I would just say, go somewhere else. You know what I mean? And they did. And my son actually would say to me, hey, Mom, I think you're in one of those things. I think you need to go for a walk. So, but I mean, I think all of us can think of times when we're either inwardly going on and on about something, or outwardly going on and on about something, even the whole time we know that, you know, no, this is just not what I need to be doing. So in a sense, I think of demons like that, these kind of autonomous energies. And what's super important is that we have a relationship to those things. It's not even that we necessarily have to vilify them, but we really have to have a relationship with them. So, you know, in the Buddhist world, I think what can be so powerful is this idea of paying attention to sensations in the body. And so I think there's such a direct link between certain sensations that arise in the body in response to different kinds of triggers that are often associated with past traumas or difficulties. And those sensations really happen in the body, and then they start traveling through the vagus nerve up to the brain, and then we start making up the stories. And one of the things I think is a powerful thing to do is to train ourselves to be aware when that's going on. I mean, for me, often if this is happening, it takes me a while to go, oh, wait a minute. What is this, mishigas going on in my head right now? And then when I really get it, there's sort of a disturbance in the field. I'll actually stop and start going in the opposite direction. I'll start going from the story in my head and try to drop into the body and find, where's the sensation? Where can I locate that sensation? And maybe I can name it. It's anxiety, it's dread, it's fear, it's just this negative sensation. And then to actually be with that sensation and to be with oneself with a lot of compassion, sort of realize this is not any fun. I'm not actually having a good time here. So we're sort of offering ourselves compassion in these kind of spaces. And I think this is where it can be useful to say Tara mantras or call on Tara. And often actually, if I really slow down and take a minute, I can sometimes track back to when I realized the sensation began. Oh, that started this morning when, whatever the thing is. And then I can sort of spend a moment or two thinking, well, what is that about? And it's not like, okay, I'm always going to get a perfect analysis or anything. I don't even know that that's the point. But I do think it's really, really useful to understand this relationship between things being triggered, sensations in the body, stories in the mind, and then sort of being swept away by all that, because we can reverse it. And I also remember Jung would say, don't go to battle directly with a complex. I don't know if y'all know the Burr Rabbit stories and the tar baby, but it's a perfect story. It's like the thing's coming at the rabbit, he punches it, it's a tar baby. And then he can't get his paw out. And then he says, you better let go of me. You better let go of me. He punches it again. And of course, then that paw is stuck. It's a great story. So it's a good story about don't go directly into battle with a complex. It's more like go towards yourself with compassion. It's like, I like to think of it as even like I'm turning in a different direction. So whatever. But to leave that whole storyline behind and move towards yourself with compassion. The other thing I want to say is, in this realm, is that if we don't, in other words, that's what I mean by having a relationship with it. It's like, I'm not going to do battle with it, but I know it. I'm pretty familiar with it. And so I can develop ways of recognizing it and also relating to myself when this is going on. If we never do that kind of work, which I think can be psychological work, it can be spiritual work, it can be a combination of the two. If we don't do that kind of work, then that's when I think people can start turning to addictive behaviors or addictive substances to try to calm all that garbage that's going on in the mind. And to me, again, that's a place where there has to be tremendous compassion towards oneself or anyone else to understand how to work with all that. But I think for me, the idea of a zombie is really when you feel like your true self has just vacated the premises. And I think a lot of times if people really are thick into an addiction, you can begin to feel like you don't have a relationship with them anymore. You have a relationship with the addiction. And so it's not like you're not really fully alive in that context. So to me, that's just a possible meaning of something like that. And I like to encourage people to ask themselves, for me, what does this mean to me? What's a demon to me? What's a zombie to me? Yeah. And I also think, and this is going to be one of my topics for tonight, which I want to give a bow to Karen and Mary, because this is what they talked about last night, is uncertainty. It's like having a relationship with uncertainty and not knowing. And for me, that's been important. I've been involved with Tibetan Buddhism since 1993, 92, 93. So that's a long time, 30 years. And prior to that, I was really lucky. I had several indigenous people, was around some very, very talented medicine people, shamanic people, shamans actually. And so I am not a person who has those kind of talents. So I don't see spirits and, that sort of thing, but I think I like to maintain this idea of not knowing, because in the Tibetan world, this idea of honoring the spirits is a very real thing. It's a very important part of the practice. And I just like to imagine, I like to imagine that just because I'm not that familiar with it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And that I can be open to this idea, especially, and many of you all probably have experiences with this, of nature spirits and having relationships with plants and animals and things like that. And so being open to this idea of spirits, I think, to me, has been part of a journey of inquiry. And in this tradition, there's the idea that some of them don't always wish us well. So I want to just say that I noticed a note from Janet that said people might have been offended by the term tar baby because it can be a racial slur. And I just want to say, if it struck anybody that way, I just want to say I'm sorry. This is a very, very old story, that its original connotation didn't mean that, but I really get how that's a possibility. So I just thank you, Janet, for that message, and I appreciate your bringing that to my awareness. So thank you very much. So I want to say that when Rinpoche gave this initiation, which now was many, many, many years ago, he was really talking about, what is the greatest obstacle, whether you call it a demon or a spirit or anything else, but what is the greatest obstacle on the path? And it's sort of like, those are the things that Tara is helping us both confront, live into, let go of, etc., is the idea of self-grasping. And I remember back in the day, which has been a long time ago, I would hear that in a context in different places, in the same paragraph with self-cherishing. And, coming from this Christian background, etc., that I grew up with, the idea of self-cherishing, that was not a good thing, so to speak, like putting yourself first, etc., etc. But after I really was happy to learn more and more about this tradition, I realized self-grasping is really quite different from self-cherishing. They can certainly go together, but they are not the same thing. And that what self-grasping really means is grasping onto the idea that I am a separate, self-existing entity. And so even the teaching on emptiness, what that teaching really is saying I am empty of having this separate, distinct self. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit because I think, it's interesting to me that it was in this particular emanation of Tara that he brought this idea forward a long, long time ago. But I think he talks about it all the time, as do most of the teachers, that it's really powerful. And I think that for me, again, if I'm a little bit relaxed and I start thinking about, the way we exist in this interdependent web of being, it becomes really obvious that there's no way that I'm this separate entity that exists unto myself by my own power or volition. And, we can realize that even from the most basic things, like none of us would be here and breathing if it weren't for the trees, right? And it's also really lovely, and I think it can be a lot of fun when you start thinking about, well, the trees wouldn't be here if it weren't for the fungi, and none of it would be here if it wasn't for the sun and rain and earth. But we're not just talking earth, we're talking about, I think there's like 1 million microorganisms and a handful of earth. And I'm sure some of you all know about these amazing fungal networks that connect all the trees. It can really be a lot of fun. Thich Nhat Hanh used to do this. He'd hold up a piece of paper. What is this? It's a piece of paper. Well, what is it really? I mean, then you start thinking, well, it took a lumberjack to cut the tree down, and it took secretaries to file the papers in the court that said these people can do that. It just, the whole world is in that piece of paper, literally. And I think it's useful for us to think about that, especially when we're feeling isolated and lonely, or if we're really in one of these complexes where we're picking on ourselves, is just to realize the phenomenal level of support that we have in every moment, and that we really are made up of all these, millions of events and different kinds of living entities. There's just no way we can be this separate, self-existing entity. So that's really what's meant by the term self-grasping. And I have thought a lot about how that is such a thing, especially in Western civilization. And there's just lots of reasons for that. Our emphasis on individualism, competition, domination. I mean, there's just so many reasons in our culture that we grasp onto this idea of having this separate self. And I also think, and this is what I think is incredibly important, because it has to do again with turning this compassionate eye towards ourselves. Like, how can I be feeling this isolated or this lonely or this cranky or this, what's going on, And I know this for sure. It's like, number one, if people were in a lot of physical pain, it really draws your attention to the whole physical body. And the more attention that comes, very specifically into our own specific body, we can start feeling like, well, we are that body. And so I think physical pain can nudge us in this direction of self-grasping. I think psychological pain can also do that. I think a lot of more people than any of us would like to think, grow up in homes that are where there's a lot of neglect and children aren't really seen. There can be abuse, there can be all sorts of things. And I think this kind of psychological and relationship derived pain can also just really narrow our scope. As children, we tend to focus on our parents. We need this and this and this from the parents. And lots of times we're lucky. We might have a sibling, we may have animals, there may be different things, but we can so often feel, if I didn't get this from my parents, well, what does that mean, right? So I think it's a very lovely and amazing thing to do, to turn a compassionate eye towards ourselves when we realize I'm sort of in that place. I'm doing that thing. I'm feeling like I'm this separate person. So I also think there are things we can do in any given moment, especially when we are willing to pay attention to all this, we realize it's going on. What might be the antidote for that? And there are lots of them, anything from calling a human friend to, if there is an animal, picking up the animal, or even just going outside, just going outside and looking around. And I want to give one example, and then I want to stop talking for a minute and see if any of you would like to offer something you've done in one of these moments that sort of brought you out of that. So the one example I want to give is I love growing native plants, and I have these plants in my yard. They're called Adamasco lilies, and they're not big. They're incredibly beautiful and delicate and fragile, but they also just bang, there they are. And I have noticed that when I'm in one of these funky moods, I'll go out there and I'll look at those lilies, and in my head I'll say to myself, yeah, that's really beautiful. It's like an idea that it's beautiful. And when I'm not in one of these places where, for whatever reason, I can really sense the interconnectivity, and I see that plant, and it's like I'm just blown away. I'm completely blown away. And it doesn't matter, I saw the plant yesterday, right? And so I have the feeling that when I encounter something like a plant, and I have this natural, spontaneous reaction to the plant of awe and wonder and gratitude and admiration towards that being that just has just shown up, I want to suggest that could be thought of as a recognition event. I would like to suggest that the part of us that's also precious and alive and beautiful and able to spontaneously appear has a resonance with that plant, or else that feeling could not really arise inside of me. And so to kind of take that into consideration so that the next time you encounter something that you have that response to, like that, oh, wow, oh my gosh, that there is a chance that there is a part of you that could be feeling that way about some other part of yourself. And that's kind of what I mean by a recognition event. So I just want to see if any brave soul would like to give an example of what I'm talking about, the disconnect, the connect, like if there's anything you could say about what you either consciously do or what has happened that brings you out of those spaces. So Sarah, unmute yourself, please. Thank you.
This is a little bit, this is on topic and it's also slightly off topic in that it's something I'm really feeling called to talk about tonight. We just went through a big deal where my husband of 25 years had open heart surgery, and he's just kind of starting to be himself again because it's utterly, utterly exhausting. They cut your chest open, they stop your heart and put you on a machine, and then they sew up your heart with veins from your leg. And it's just like, you know, it's like monster movie kind of stuff, right? But before this happened, we went through this period where we just could not get along. And in fact, I had talked to Rachel about it. I'm trying to figure out what is going on. And it was the fact that he had cardiac insufficiency was making him kind of crazy and terrified, right?
Yeah.
And I was getting a DEXA scan with a lady who's a casual friend of mine. And she told me she had the same experience with her husband, when he was having little micro mini strokes.
Huh.
So I just wanted to put out there for people, if you see in somebody you're close to odd behaviors, maybe it's time to get it looked at medically. And you may have to make a little bit of a stink, because the cardiologist Joel was working with was like, oh, you're fine, you're fine. Well, he wasn't, but he
Wow.
manifests as very robust. So he could take a stress test and it wouldn't come up. But in fact, he was in trouble and it probably would have killed him. And that was, you know, and that, so then the other part of this is related to this terrific awareness of mortality and having to work a lot with these deep fears, because I'm in my later 70s. So that's like up in my face too, you know?
Yeah.
And I found last month's Tara, the red home sounding Tara, really thinking about how I wanted to set my boundaries and protect my energy during this time when I'm the primary caregiver. And I just drew these lines and said, okay, I'm not taking him to medical exams. I'm not driving on all these freeways to Sacramento, which is where everything is near where I live. I hate those freeways and they scare me and it wears me out, and I'm not going to do that. So when somebody else takes him to those things, other people do these things. And sometimes when there's family visits, I say, I'm sorry, I was doing something important, and I leave and go do my exercises or whatever. So this all is related, although on a very, very mundane level.
I don't think that's mundane at all. I don't think that's even slightly mundane. And I appreciate your sharing it, because basically it's almost like saying, you know, we're working at being aware of how these things show up in ourselves, but you're saying we also need to work at being aware of how they show up in other people.
Yeah.
So that is, thank you, Sarah. That's not even remotely mundane. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So maybe does one other person have an example, and then we will continue on and shortly start our practice? Or would you all like to continue on? You know, I'm sort of famous for wanting people to speak up. So if you don't speak up now, I'll be talking to you at the end and asking you to speak up then. So, all right. So maybe let's just proceed with a few more comments and then we will do our practice.
Looks like Megan's got her name.
Okay.
Oh, she's clapping. No, I thought it was a hand raise. Sorry.
Okay.
It is a hand raise. Can I share something?
Yes.
Okay. What works for me, which is a technique I've used for a long time, probably about 10 years, is when I feel sort of, one way you could describe it is like I'm possessed by a bad mood or a zombie or a demon or something like this. I'm really just possessed. I sit down and I write my narrative of fear and resentments. I really like try to get clarity on those. And then I shift my understanding to how those are actually like characteristic interpretations that I bring to the obstacles of my life. And after doing this a lot, I find that over and over and over again, I have the same misapprehension that because I'm bringing myself to every instance, I'm also bringing the distortions I have to every instance. And once I know what those distortions are, which is very easy for me now because they repeat over and over again, then I do a spiritual practice around releasing them and giving them to some kind of, giving them to some, in some spiritual sense, kind of letting go of them. And this, so it brings me into relationship to like the demon, and then it helps me let go of the demon.
Megan, thank you. That's just perfect. I mean, that's exactly what I was talking about. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and I think that just a couple of other things I wanted to say, and then we will practice. Is that I think part of the basis of how some of this stuff gets started is related to what Sarah's talking about, ultimately the fear of death, mortality, all kinds of fears, that we just want to be in control. We're just in love with this idea of certainty. And that's what Mary and Karen and Brenda were talking about last night. What is your relationship to uncertainty? Because actually uncertainty is at the basis of everything. I mean, nothing is really certain. But I think, in our culture, and I think we have to be really careful about this, because our culture tends to, whether it's your exercise routine or your diet or your spiritual practice even, or how much therapy have you done, like you're going to get control over some stuff, right? You're going to be able to have this predictable life because you did this and this and this and this. And I mean, I don't know if y'all remember Jim Fixx. He's one of the most famous marathon runners in the world who died of a heart attack while he was out running, right? We just don't have that kind of control. And I think it's also super unfortunate that a lot of old religious institutions taught that, if you just do this, you just do this, you just do that, and you fix up all your bad parts, so to speak, then you'll have control. Or if you give a certain amount of money, or if you go to confession, or you do whatever you do, you find it everywhere in all traditions, including Buddhism. It's like, okay, if I meditate or whatever, I'm going to get some control. And I think, yeah, these things do help. Actually, meditation really does help because, even listening to what we're talking about tonight. And at the same time, what it's really helping with is getting a relationship to the stuff. It's like having a relationship with the idea that I don't have control. And maybe I can relax a little bit. And maybe I can not be saying yucky things to myself because things turned out this way instead of that way. Well, if I only done this instead of that, So I think really, that gets tied into that idea of having this particular identity, which, with that identity, maybe we'll have some control. So this business, this Tantra practice is really, it's sort of like just the opposite. It's like, okay, can we just allow everything? Can we allow everything? Can we be in relationship to everything? We're not trying to control the thing. We're trying to understand it. We're trying to have a relationship with it, trying to have a compassionate relationship with ourselves as we're experiencing all this stuff. Yeah. And this is where I think the idea of protection comes in, the protection of the wrathful deity, because the idea, especially if we really kind of hold this in our consciousness, that there's nothing that this vast consciousness that Tara embodies for us, you just can't present anything to that consciousness that's going to throw you out the door. It just doesn't work that way. And so what we're doing when we do these practices is we're cultivating that same consciousness within ourselves, that I can connect with this. It's already inside of me. I can use these practices and mantras and visualizations to visualize something we can say is outside of us, but it's also really inside of us. It's an outer reflection of an inner reality. And so it's kind of like we're cultivating, really building that muscle into our nervous system, our limbic system, of vastness and compassion and acceptance. And I would have to say, curiosity. What is that, right? And I do want to say it sure does help to practice with other people and to talk to other people and to really be able to, kind of laugh at ourselves at how these things work and how we all have these experiences. Because I think that's, I think that's another way that the compassion we can have for ourselves develops, because we can feel that compassionate in the group we're in, that we're being held in compassion. So I'm sure there are other things I could say, but I think I'll stop so that we can practice. And to just mention this without saying, word for word, this mantra is really asking Tara to, help, kind of keep these various beings that might prod us into one direction or another, to basically kind of keep those guys in line. So, if you're interested in what I'm just looking here, what the mantra really means, it's like she's really dissolving these energies. It's like breaking up the complex. So nobody's doing anything to anybody, but these energies are really being dissolved. And you see that in the visualization, because it talks about this light that we're visualizing is pacifying ill will or negative intentions that could disturb us or anybody we're concerned with. And that these negative imprints, I think that's what Megan is talking about, these patterns that have been with us probably since childhood and maybe even before, that those, we begin to see through those patterns. They begin to have less of a hold on us. And so I just offer, there's a lot, there's just so many teachings just in this one practice, both the mantra, the praise, and the visualization. So having said all that, I would like to invite you to really be entering into this with the idea of profound and extreme compassion for the stuff that arises inside of all of us. The difficulties sometimes we have managing all these different things, and that this light is really, really tuning all that stuff down, bringing the energy down, allowing us to kind of see through these things that have maybe had a hold on us, and therefore they can dissolve. Not to say they won't be back. We don't have to be upset when they come back. Oh God. Anyway, you can tell I'm laughing out of familiarity. Anyway, so let's practice, and please, just keep track if there's something that comes up for you that shows up in the practice that you want to mention at the end, some insight or some curiosity or some anything. Keep track of that. And I also want to encourage you all, it's like all of these Taras, every single one of them, have a lot of healing light, a lot of healing energy. And so if there's specific, things are going on with you, whether they're physical or emotional, spiritual, just imagine that you're placing all this stuff into this mandala of Tara, into our gathering. And likewise, if there are people or places or concerns, because there's a lot going on all over the world, and we all have specific people that we have concerns about, to just know that because you're here, they're here. And you may think of some of those folks specifically, but I think we can also, have this deep intention that all the beings that I'm connected to, that, if I could think of them all, I would want them to have help, that they can be the beneficiaries of this practice as well. So let us return. To this idea of support. Let us really, it's almost like dropping back inside. And again, being in touch with what's going on in our physical, emotional, spiritual selves. And consciously feeling if we can just release ourselves into the support of Tara and the teachings and the Sangha, just to let that attention kind of drop inward. And then to let arise in your mind's eye the image of space that is the most resonant for you, that when you call it to mind, where the sea, the desert, the sky, space itself, that when you call that image to mind, you really can sense what spaciousness is. And to not forget that that image of space is also an outer reflection of an inner reality, that our awakened consciousness that is already within us is that vast and also that spacious. So we're kind of calling all that in by calling up this image of space. And then we imagine that space, of course, contains everything that was, is, and ever will be. So it's just full of potential and of everything that could arise out of space in this moment. We're going to invoke the whole mandala of green Tara and her 21 emanations. And you can, some of us are better visualizers than others. You might be able to really bring to mind this mandala with all the emanations, or it might be easier just to see it all as light, different colors of light. But to know that the intention is to call forth all these subtle energies of Tara, and that they begin to appear in subtle bodies of light so that we can actually see them, so to speak, in our mind's eye. And so we see this whole mandala of Tara, green Tara, in the center, the 21 emanations around her, all this light and power and wisdom and beauty. And then we're going to call on our teachers. Think specifically of who your teachers have been, who they are now, from any tradition that really means something to you. Because they lived and taught, because they are living and teaching. It's part of how we've ended up here today. We're part of their lineages and they're part of us. So we think of these teachers, and I like to sort of see them gathered around green Tara. That's kind of how I see them, but you can see them however it works for you. And to feel a sense of gratitude that you have been able to be the beneficiary of the blessings of these various teachers, their love and kindness and wisdom. And then to imagine that you are surrounded by your friends and loved ones and supporters, and they're surrounded by their friends and loved ones and supporters. And it just goes on and on and on. Yeah. Until finally there's just an infinite number of beings here with us. And as I said before, if there's specific aspects of yourself or other people or places that you want to put at Tara's feet, like right in the center of the mandala, imagine that you can actually do that. And, we can call on our helpful and beneficial ancestors and the helpful and beneficial spirits of the land we're actually on, the earth herself. We can just really call on all of these beneficial beings who are here to support us. And then we can actually take refuge in Tara's awakened consciousness, which includes our own awakened consciousness. And we can take refuge in these wisdom teachings, but also wisdom teachings from other traditions that have meant a lot to us. We can take refuge in this Sangha, in other Sanghas that we're part of, and we can take refuge in the Sanghas of the lineage practitioners. It's like this has been going on for way more than 1,000 years. And because it's been passed down, we can be calling on those Sanghas too. We can take refuge in these lineage Sanghas of our ancestors. And to think someday we will be the ancestors. There will be descendants coming after us. And so we take refuge in all these amazing qualities and beings. And we ask that through the power of giving and the other perfections, that we could fully wake up. We could wake up to the fact that we're awake in order to be a benefit to both to ourselves and to all living beings. And then we remember the 4 immeasurables. We ask that all living beings would have happiness and the causes of happiness, that all beings would be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow, that all beings could come to realize actually we can't be separated from this sacred happiness, which is sorrowless, and that we could live in equanimity without aversion for those we keep at a distance or attachment for those we hold close, that we could live believing in the equality of all that lives. Om Sabha Shuddha Sarva Dharma Sabha Shuddhoham. That is the mantra of emptiness, just reminding ourselves that we are not a separate fixed entity, and actually nothing is a separate fixed entity. And so out of that vastness, that true sense of vastness and interconnectivity, we're going to call forth this particular emanation of Tara, the dark red victorious Tara, and we see her coming into the foreground where we can really focus on her. And so she is this very dark red, vivid color. She has a slightly wrathful expression. She's sitting on a lotus throne with a sun disk underneath. She's holding her hand open in the gesture of supreme giving, her right hand, and holds a dark red vase which completely enchants these Buddhas. And her left hand is at her heart in the gesture of refuge, which is really what I'm saying. You know, with whatever we've got, we can bring it to her and take refuge. And her top 3 chakras are adorned with the syllables Om Aham, the white Om in her crown chakra, the red Ah in her throat chakra, the blue Hum in her heart chakra. That blue Hum begins to radiate this beam of blue light out into the realms of the wisdom beings, the initiatory deities, and invites them to come here. Ahei Saham Bamha. And here we just pause for a minute and really try to sense that these many Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, these awakened beings, you know, the Dakinis, which you can think of also as female Buddhas, they're all part of these Buddha families. All these energies of Tara just filling up this mandala. These energies are really here. And we're calling on them to assist us in this practice. And so we ask for purification, Om Sarvatathagata Avashitsamam. And recently I heard Rinpoche talk about this, which I really loved. It's like we're going to imagine that these dakinis with these vases are pouring this liquid nectar, it's like light, into our open crown chakra. And he was saying, you know, just imagine you're standing under a waterfall and this light is just pouring into you and all around you. And I love that image. And I also like to think of it as just dissolving these places where the energy can be stuck. You know, like we've been talking about, false concepts, false impressions, false patterns, where the energy can really get stuck. That's what this light is dissolving, so that we can be more directly in contact with this awakened energy that really is in our own subtle body. So we just imagine this light pouring through us and, you know, pulling anything out that might be kind of sticking around that we don't need, and that it all leaves our body as this light pours out. And then we imagine one of the Dakinis pours this same nectar into the open crown chakra of dark red victorious Tara, and this tiny little drop overflows from her crown chakra and forms the Buddha Amitabha, Buddha of infinite light who appears just above her head. Also in a subtle body of light, a subtle body of red light. His name meaning light without ceasing. It's incredible. He has his own whole practice world that goes with him. This great Buddha of compassion. And so this is a place where I like to imagine, before we do the formal offering practice, that we do what I call the personal offering practice. Just imagine that you can offer this dark red Tara absolutely everything. Everything. It does not matter what it is. You know, it can be things we want to let go of. It can actually be things we want to create. It can really be anything. And to imagine that what those, actually bring to mind concretely, what do you want to offer her? Either something she could dissolve or either something she could help you bring to fruition, or whatever it is. Just imagine you can offer her everything. Really. And whatever it is, she's delighted by it because she knows what to do with it. And she's there to help. So we just imagine that we're offering her everything. She takes what we offer her and transforms it into blessings. I like to think of this as like wisdom blessings. It can be an insight, it can be a much needed teaching that's coming from our own experience. She's just showering us with these blessings that are made of the stuff of our very own lives. And I often like to say, just really take that in and be aware that you might be able to offer some of these blessings out to someone else. Like tonight, I can offer out what Karen and Mary offered last night. We never know when we're going to have the opportunity to take our own blessings and offer them into the world. And then we do the traditional offering practice. Om Benzam Rita Kundali, Hana Hana Hampe, Om Sabal Shita Sawa Dharma Sabal Shtoham. And so first we imagine this wrathful deity, Amrita Kundali, emanating from our hearts. He's like Ganesh. In the Hindu tradition, he's the remover of all obstacles. So it's fun to think about tossing those out there, and that he can really dissolve any obstacles to our practice, especially to the offering practice. Like, we're just going to use our imagination. Starting now, we're going to imagine that out of this vast emptiness, the syllable Om is resonating. And as it's resonating, it's creating these beautiful jeweled vessels. Each one has an Om inside of it. And now these offering substances just begin to pour out. These classic offering substances of water and light and candles and music and incense, flowers, food, right? It's like we're going to imagine the most sumptuous banquet ever. I like to imagine even things like whole hillsides of mountains, or free-flowing rivers, or water coming to places where people need it. All kinds of offering substances just pouring out of these vessels. And they're clear, they're unhindered, they're unending, because our imagination is free to create imaginally this vast banquet for Tara and all the Buddhas. Om Aham, Om Aham, Om Aham, Om Aryatara, Sapariwara, Argam, Pajam, Puspe, Dupe, Alake, Genje, Nevaje, Shabda Pratitse, Soha. So that's Sanskrit for the offering substances, and we're just like inviting Tara and the whole entourage to enjoy them. And, you know, if you have the praise there, you want to read it along, that's great. And if you just want to listen, that's good too. I praise the one to whom Indra, Agni, Vayu, and the other powerful ones make offerings, who is honored by demons, zombies, and other harmful spirits who bow down before her. So it's like even they can find a place of refuge in this energy. And so I'm gonna offer you this visualization. I want to say again, really simplify it for yourself in a way that it doesn't feel complicated, that you have to exert a lot of energy on it. But try to just get, what is the essence of this? And you might even pick the parts of it that feel really resonant with you. That we're going to imagine that from her heart and this vase in her open right hand, these dark red rays of light in the form of flames are going out into all the 10 directions, especially to the 10 directional protectors, who are the lords of the Buddhas. You know, they're the kind of, if you have ever studied nature spirits, you know, they're the larger spirits and the smaller spirits. So it's like these 10 directional protectors, and that light is going out, and it completely pacifies any ill will or negative intentions that could disturb us or others that we're concerned about. You know, I think this could really be a powerful visualization for us right now in this country, to imagine this ill will and negativity really being pacified, because it's really for the benefit of everybody, the people who are feeling it, the people who are receiving it. It's just an opportunity to fill the field up with loving, compassionate energy that can pacify the negativity, and to imagine some of our old patterns, really old patterns, can be dissolved. And so these little complexes can calm down and be subdued. So we're going to do this mantra 108 times and then rest together in the space and resonance of the mantra, and then we'll come back together, see what anyone wants to say, and yeah, like that. Om Tari Tutari Turi Sara Bigana Shatram Uts Traya Soha. Om Tari Tutari Turi Sara Bigana Shatram Uts Traya Soha. Om Tari Tutari Turi Sara Bigana Shatram Uts Traya Soha. Om Tari Tutari Turi Sara Bigana Shatram Uts Traya Soha. Om Tari Tutari Turi Sara Bigana Shatram Uts Traya Soha. Om Tari Tutari Turi Sara Bigana Shatram Uts Traya Soha. So I just got a little message that my battery might go out if I don't plug it in. So y'all, I'll be right back. We're gonna feed the deity of electricity. I'll be right back. Sorry. So, Om Tari Tutardur Sara Bigana Shatram Utsatraya Soha. 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 Om Tari Tutari Sar Vigana Shatra Try 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 Soha. So I just want to say one thing that I'm noticing now, and it's just seems to happen every time for me anyway, that when I do the practices of the wrathful deities, for me, instead of this big fiery energy coming up, this amazing energy of quiet often shows up, of really quiet. And for me, that kind of quiet is space. It's so spacious. And it just almost feels like whatever has happened, all this, churned up energy has just been, it's interesting, the practice even uses the word pacified, has been, some peace has been brought to that. And then the space opens up. And what shows up for me in that space are all these ancestral teachings from these various traditions that point to that oneness, to that lack of separation, to that inherent oneness, which I think, if we can really connect with it, is the basis for compassion. So just really invite you all to pay attention to whatever sensations or thoughts are arising for you. Just really pay attention. See what's there. And to still sort of continuously be touching back into the support that's present. And so now we're going to release all these beings and dedicate the practice. So we can begin that process by thanking all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and teachers and all the beings that have responded to our requests for their presence and their assistance. And we just thank them, we bow to them, we offer them our gratitude, and we ask them to return to their natural realms, the realms they came from. I also like to remind myself and everybody else they haven't gone anywhere. So if you need them like that, they'll be back. But for now, we're releasing them from this particular practice space. Just seeing them return to the realms they came from. And then we're looking at the entire mandala of Tara, and we see dark red Tara receding back into her place in the mandala. And then we see the entire mandala dissolving into light. You can see it like fireworks of all different colors of light, however you want to see it. But to just imagine that all these subtle emanations are dissolving back into light and then back into space, into formlessness. And this beautiful display of light, which goes into the entire universe and also into us. You can imagine the light just sinking into your body and also sinking into your heart, where it joins the Tara that's already sitting on a lotus throne in your own heart. And that light just begins to beam out through your whole body and into space and everywhere you can imagine. And then we are back again. We are back again, visualizing space. We're back to space where it all began. And so as we rest in that space, we dedicate the practice. We ask that whatever positive energies have been brought forward, stirred up, that those energies be of immense benefit to the healing and awakening of all beings everywhere. That means us included, all beings everywhere with absolutely no exceptions. We just dedicate the practice to the benefit of all beings. And then we give thanks for the teachers, for the practice, for each other. Yeah, for being alive, being able to do this together. We give thanks. So, yeah. Bye, Kylie. Does anybody feel moved to share something with us? You can just unmute yourself if you want to. Liz is saying, where's Bodhi? The cat. Bodhi the cat. He's been here a couple of times, but I think he's probably deserted us to go take a nap. I'll tell him you asked. Phew. Joan. Can you unmute? Joan, can you unmute?
Yes, I will unmute.
Thank you.
I'm in a place I've been before where I feel like I've got my finger stuck in an electric socket and I'm just vibrating with stuff, irritation, excitement, like I'm on the edge of something, finding something, you know. I kind of revolve every 9 years and I have another 9-year thing coming up.
Huh.
And I'm just kind of aware of that. And as I said, I'm irritated and excited and my brain is shattered. And I'm just, it's just where I am right now. I feel like I'm on the verge of something and I don't know what it is and I'll just have to wait.
Well, you know, that's interesting. And some of you may know this if you're astrology buffs, that we are in the midst of, well, it started last night and into this morning of a big solar eclipse of the new moon in Aries. And it's all these people are talking about new beginnings, really profound new beginnings. So I think you're,
yes, I think I'm in the right place.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think to, you know, whichever emanation of Tara, but just to ask for help so that the uncertainty of it all is just fine.
Right. It is just fine.
Yeah.
But I keep reaching for certainty and I know that I need to not reach for certainty.
Just know you've got a lot of company.
Yeah, right. Okay.
It's such a fantastic illusion, but we all love it.
Yes, right.
Right. Thank you, Joan.
Thanks.
I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? We need at least one more brave soul to share something before we sign off for the night. I know you all have it in you. Lisa.
Well, I'll bite.
Thank you.
This is sort of maybe a mini what you were talking about before, kind of being possessed by a complex. I hit a point right before practice where I was just so emotional and like couldn't stop crying and was like, how am I gonna
have the camera on, and you know how you kind of minimize your own stuff, like, oh, it's not that bad. This is blown out of proportion for what's going on, and I shouldn't have these feelings and all that baloney. Although part of it, I will say, I'm pretty sure does tie back to some childhood stuff that would be just complex. So I'm grateful actually to MJ. I messaged her real quick and we chatted a little bit and blurted it all out, which is a really helpful way for me to calm down. There's, of course, many other ways, because that's not always available. But I'm grateful for the practice tonight and how appropriate this Tara was to what I was dealing with.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and as I was saying earlier, I mean, so you just gave a great example of what a possible antidote can be. And sometimes it's another person, you know, just being able to speak it out to somebody else and that somebody else listens.
It's huge. It's huge.
It is huge. It's really huge. Yeah, you know, I was also thinking about Lama Rod gave a great teaching on Chinrizik on Sunday. He's talking about the energy of deep acceptance. And I think that's kind of what we're really in that territory. Can we step into that? It's like when we invoke Tara, we're invoking this vast energy of consciousness that is nothing but acceptance, actually. And you know, I just can't say this enough. That's really a reminder that we have that capacity inside ourselves. And so, I mean, I know y'all find it's true for me. It's so much easier to be compassionate about somebody else than yourself. Yeah, right. So, and to think of it as sort of the honorable work of awakening is to awaken that compassion for yourself. And so it is work, right? But to sort of take it on as a holy task. So, yay,
I
Lisa.
would like to add something.
Okay.
This is Mary.
Okay.
I've been dealing with something that reaches into my childhood. My parents were like financial chaos, and I've like brought that into my life, and have struggled with how to release it.
Mm-hmm.
And I started working with the cards, with the tarot cards, and there was that moment of realization that I really have to forgive myself at that deep level.
Mm.
And somehow, like, that sort of worked, like, at a deep level. And, like, there's been this, like, peace.
Mm.
And tonight, there was this, like, and now you can also forgive your parents.
Mm. Yeah.
And what's funny is during this time of peace, like, I'm like, sometimes I'll catch myself like, I should like be feeling worse than I am now. It's kind of like, I have to be like, why do I need to feel worse? You know,
Yeah.
like I should be like anxious and all these things that I'm really not. And I have to catch myself. So
Yeah, you have to sort of acclimate to new states of being. I mean, I think people do get anxious when the old states of being start to dissolve. It's like, wait, what? You know, and that sort of hypervigilance can come in there. Yeah, I mean, that's beautiful, Mary. And you know, that reminds me, there's just always so many things I want to say, you just can't say them all. But I was thinking about as we get older, people who, whether you've decided consciously or not necessarily consciously, but I think most people who show up in spaces like this have decided to do some work on themselves. And sometimes that work is in therapy, and sometimes it's in spiritual practice, sometimes it's both. But what I found is sometimes when the old stuff comes back, it comes back at a much deeper level. And so if we bring to bear everything we've been doing and maybe some fairly recent discoveries, we can actually be present to the old stuff in such a way that it can actually be even more vivid, but it doesn't take over. It's a little bit hard to explain, but I think it's important to realize that we just are getting these opportunities as long as we live to keep shedding stuff, just to keep shedding stuff. And I think if we can stay away from the demon of, oh, not that again, I thought I fixed that, you know, you can stay away from that, but like, wow, here it is again, and it's even deeper. I can
They
feel
say
it.
I'm 84 and I'm
Yeah.
doing it over and over and over again. I'm tired of this stuff.
Give us some hope, Joan.
Well, there's that too. Well, wow.
That is the hope, that I get to do it over again
Oh,
until I, that is the hope. Some
Good
friend of
point.
mine used to say, God's going to keep you here till you like it.
Oh God, we should write a book called Pearls of Wisdom. Anyway, you guys are great. Well, I think that the hour has arrived. It's after 9 o'clock. Thank you all so much. Thank you for your faithful attendance and your generosity of spirit and presence and Donna and every other thing. Just thank you for showing up for yourselves and each other, and it's pretty remarkable. Let's keep it up.
Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thanks everyone.
See you next
Bye.
time.
Good night, everyone. Thank you, Rachel.
Everyone, thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, Rachel.
Good night.
Thank you all.
You're so welcome.